happen. So we're going to finish up a series today that we've been in called In the Meantime. We've been talking about David, and if you don't know what we've been talking about, just go back to our website, ngates.ca, and check it out. You can see it all online. But it's all been about what do we do when we feel like there's something in our future, where we feel like there's something great in our future, but we can't get there just yet. Nothing in our own power seems to be moving us from where we're at to the place that we think we should be. What do we do in the meantime? What do we do until we get to the place where we feel like we should be in life? What do we do with that period of time? While Pastor Allen was praying, I felt like there was something that came to mind. I just want to remind us that we don't go to the meantime, we go through the meantime. The meantime's not a destination. It's something that it seems like the place that we are in most of our life, but it's not where we're supposed to be most of our life. We're supposed to walk through it, and then on to the next, which is another meantime, and then on to the next. But we're supposed to walk through. We're not meant to just end up in the meantime. And so how we deal with the meantime is not so that we can stay there forever, but so that we can grow and become who we're meant to be, so that God can push us and lead us into the next steps in our life. Let me read a quick verse to you. Ecclesiastes 4, 9-10. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. I watched a show a little while ago that I really liked. It was called Alone. Has anyone heard of the show Alone? It was on the History Channel, and I was so amazed by the show because I saw it promoted in all of these big places. And then I looked into the show a bit more, and it was all about surviving in the worst conditions ever, in the hardest places to live. It was all about surviving in that hard place. And that hard place was North Vancouver Island. Isn't that cool? So the History Channel, they're promoting it in New York, where Pastor Alan Bernie went, and they're promoting it all over these places, all over the world. And the hard place, the place that you can't survive very easily, is right at the top of Vancouver Island. It was awesome. So they drop off all these people on Vancouver Island, and they say, "Okay, survive. Last person standing wins." And that's the whole show. They all have their own cameras. There's no camera crew. There's nothing with them. And one of the big questions that I saw in one of the trailers is, what's going to be harder, being alone, staying alone, or staying alive? What will be harder, staying alone or staying alive? And right away what happens, they all have satellite phones that if they call in, they can get off the show. Right away what happens, they show up, and the first two shows are like on one day, because so much happens in that one day. The first person shows up at their spot, and they see all these like fish heads and stuff all over the beach. They're like, "Oh, that's kind of weird, but anyways, let's carry on." Then they see a bear den. They're like, "Oh, I don't really like this much," and he's like a cop from Boston or something like that. And all of a sudden he looks up, and there's bears up in the trees. Like, "Yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah, I'm done." He calls in. He's off the show, you know. We're like, "Whoa, this is going to be a quick show." And the next guy that leaves the show it's on the very first night. He's sleeping, and he hears wolves howling. I mean, that would be freaky to me. You're on your own. Wolves are howling, and so he hears and it goes back to his how he applied for the show. He's got some video clips of himself and things. He says, "I'm good with anything. I am a little bit afraid of dogs, because I had this tragic experience when I was younger, but everything else, no problem." First night, wolves are howling. And he's like, "I'm done." So he calls in, and he leaves the show, and a bunch of people are dropping off the show right away. And eventually you're left with this core of 3 or 4 guys who have seen some animals, and they're doing okay, and they're carrying on, it's all right. And so the new challenge becomes not the animals, not survival. They figure out a good diet. But they start talking about missing people. They start talking about their families at home, the friends that they had. You'll see their video clips are like, my one of them said my wife would be this far along in her pregnancy now, and I'm not there. And they start talking like that, and I miss this person, and I can't believe I'm not seeing this friend, and I can't believe I'm not, and it doesn't have anything to do with staying alive anymore. The bigger challenge is being alone. The bigger challenge is not walking with the people that they've walked with. It's standing on their own in that place. It was interesting. And so eventually all these people left the show because they didn't want to be alone anymore. They didn't want to walk alone anymore. The survival wasn't the issue. They just didn't want to be alone. You know, the meantime, sometimes we think when we're in the meantime, we need to walk it alone. We need to just figure this out, get our heads down, just walk through, and I'm just going to push through, and it's going to be okay. I'll be on my own, and that will be fine, and whatever. I don't need to bog everyone down with my problems and what I'm going through. I'll just carry on and move forward, and that will be fine. We'll get through here at some point. I don't think God wanted us to be that way. I don't think God wanted us to walk through things alone like that. In fact, I'm pretty sure He didn't. We learn a lot when we're on our own, but we also need people once in a while to walk with us. We need people who know us. And the challenge is sometimes we think that the people who know us are just the people that see us, you know. Oh, I've got lots of friends. We've got all these coworkers. They all see me every day. It's okay. I have lots of friends. I'm okay. Oh, I have, at school, I have all these people that I see all the time. We're all friends, so I have lots of friends. I don't need anyone else. The thing is, some of these relationships, acquaintances aren't friendships. Just seeing people at surface doesn't do anything for your soul, doesn't do anything for your heart, doesn't do anything for shaping who you are and feeling like you're walking with someone. Acquaintances just don't do it. That includes showing up on a Sunday morning. Just being here on a Sunday morning doesn't mean all of a sudden you're friends with every one of these people. You probably don't even know most of these people's name. Lots of strangers in the Comox Valley know more about my kids than you know more about these people. I have people show up to me all the time. They say, oh, there's Isabella, or there's Hardy. Oh, great. Or one time I talked about Isabella's bed, and we were out in a public place, and someone said, Isabella, I heard about your bed. And she's like, who are you? And we're all, whoa, that's. But my son, too, when he introduces himself to people now, will be any lineup. One of our kids will say, hi. And someone will, hey. And Hardy's like, I'm Hardy William Ownut. That's what he always says. I'm Hardy William Ownut. And then yesterday he said, and she's, what's her name, Mummy? Of Isabella. Like, just met. He's telling everyone about our whole family. So some people, even in this room, you don't know everyone's name even. You don't know much about them, and yet sometimes we think this is good enough. We've got friends around. We've got people around. People would walk with us. But it's once we get in the meantime that we all of a sudden realize, I don't actually have any friends. I don't actually have anyone who knows what I'm facing, who knows what I'm walking through, who knows the challenges of my heart, and knows the strength that I have to overcome those challenges. I don't have anyone around me who knows that I can get through this and who's going to remind me that I can. We don't find that out until the meantime sometimes. There's a Jewish philosopher named Martin Buber, and he said, meeting another is a great thing, but not the greatest thing. The greatest thing any person can do for another is to confirm the deepest thing in him, in her. To take the time and have the discernment to see what's most deeply there, most fully that person, and then confirm it by recognizing it and encouraging it. I wonder if that was the standard. I wonder how many of us would say, I'm not sure if I have any friends. You know? Who's the person in your life who says, no, cut through all that. Put the facade down. Take off the mask. I know your heart. I know what's inside of you. I know what hurts you. I know what makes this life hard for you to walk out. I know what the challenges are that you face. I know what you feel when that topic comes up. I know what you're feeling right now. Put down the facade, and I want to tell you that I recognize in you a strength to walk through what you're trying to walk through. I wonder if some of us would say, I don't even have a friend, if that's what a friend is supposed to be. Eugene Peterson, who wrote the Message version of the Bible, said, he talks about how most of our acquaintances are transactional acquaintances. People see us and think, I wonder what they could do for me. I wonder how we could offer something to each other. I wonder how we could strike up a deal relationally, how we could just carry on that way. He said a lot of people, or a lot of people just have judgment when they see other people. And then he said this, and then someone enters our life who isn't looking for someone to use, is leisurely enough to find out what's really going on in us, is secure enough not to exploit our weaknesses or attack our strengths, recognizes our inner life and understands the difficulty of living out our inner convictions, confirms what's deepest within us. This is a friend. The inner battle is the real thing that people need to know about, and the inner strength is what we forget sometimes in the meantime. We sometimes forget what God's put in us that has allowed us to walk through what we're walking through. We think our circumstances or what's going on here is going to defeat us or wear us down. And usually our circumstances don't wear us down and cause us to give up in the meantime. It's usually ourselves. It's usually the heart. It's usually what's going on inside. My friend Terry, who's down in Victoria working with Celebrate Recovery, he said, Evan, addiction is not the problem that we need to fix. He said the problem that we need to fix comes from hurts from parents. Comes from hurts in past lives. It comes from rejection. It comes from betrayal. Those are the things that we need to address. Those are the spots that God needs to heal. Addiction is just a byproduct of all those things. So we need to figure out what the inner heart issue is, what's going on inside. A friend does that. A friend walks with people in those places. The greatest challenges in the meantime are not external, they're internal. So the greatest solutions are not external, they're internal. If you want to overcome in the meantime, you need someone who's going to remind you what you're made of. Remind you what you've got there to fight that. What the battle is all about, what you're capable of, what God has put in you, how He's developed you for this exact moment, for this meantime. Lots of people have great ideas and great intentions and want to start a good thing. I'm going to overcome this meantime. I'm going to be king, like David was saying. I'm going to take on the next thing. I'm going to become what I'm supposed to become. I'm going that way. It's going to happen. But if you want to have a finish worthy of the start, you need a friend who knows the challenges in your heart. That's tweetable. If you want to have a finish worthy of the start, you need a friend who knows the challenges of your heart. David had that friend. And we haven't talked about that friend yet, and we've sort of left him till the end. Jonathan was that friend for David. Jonathan, if you've been following along with us, David was the second king of Israel. Saul was the first. Jonathan was Saul's son. He was the heir apparent. He was the next one to become king of Israel. And directly after David beat Goliath, he's in and he's talking to Saul. He's talking to the king, and they're sort of determining some things. Saul says, "You're going to stay around here for a while." Literally, as soon as that moment ends, in chapter 18, the very first verses in chapter 18, Jonathan comes up to David and does something incredible for him. It says, after David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. Jonathan became one in spirit with David. I want to tell you something. God does that. David didn't do that. God does that. If you want a friend like Jonathan in your life, you need to start asking God for that. You need to start asking God, you need to put someone in my life. I need someone who's going to walk with me like Jonathan walked with David. I need that. I need you to do that work. Jonathan's just watching on. He says, boom, there's all of a sudden this connection, this friendship that he'd never let go of. It says, from that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Jonathan's standing there, and all of what he's wearing. In those days, what you wore defined who you were. That was your identity. This is who I am. Everyone knew that this is the son of the king. This is the guy who's moving forward because of what he's wearing, because of the sword that he gets to use in battle, because of the bow that he has, because of what he looks like, because of his clothes that are fancy and all of those things. And he stands before David and says, I'm giving all of this to you. Jonathan gives up the throne in that moment. Isn't that crazy? Jonathan, honestly, if you looked out across the people, everyone would have said Jonathan's the next king. It wouldn't have been a problem. But Jonathan says, God is doing something different. And David, I know that you've seen it. I know that he's spoken it to you. But you're about to endure a serious battle. You're about to walk through the meantime. You're about to walk through the challenge, and you'll feel like you're frustrated, and you're waiting, and you're battling, and you can't get to the next stage, and you can't get there. David, you're going to feel all of those feelings. I know what you're going to face. I know what your inner battle is going to be. But I want to tell you something. God has put an inner strength in you to face that inner battle. And this is my confirmation of that. Take my clothes, take the kingship, take my sword, take everything. I want you to know that the king's son, the heir apparent, is saying to you, you are the king, and God is doing something through you. I want to know, do you have a friend like that? Do you have someone who comes up before you and says, I thought I was going in this direction, and I was looking for all the fame, but it is clear what God is doing in your life. I can't deny it. I can't believe it. It's incredible what God is doing in your life. I'm going to get behind you, walk with you, serve you, and empower you to be everything that God is saying you should be. That's chapter 18. The rest of chapter 18, then chapter 19, a big chunk of chapter 20, Saul tries to kill David 6 times. Imagine what that would have been like had Jonathan not come up ahead of that moment. This isn't for me, I think. I'll just give up. I'm going to stop fighting the battles. I'm going to stop trying to get through this meantime. I'll just serve Saul however he wants. I'll stop doing all of these other things. I'll just give up. It's fine. I don't need to be anything special. Imagine what that friendship, that covenant that Jonathan made with him would have done for him. Said, don't forget, I'm behind you, I'm for you, I'm with you. I know the battle, but I know the strength. And so he says, I got to walk through this meantime. I got to walk through this time. It was after that Jonathan came to him and said, David came to Jonathan and said, I think your dad wants me dead. Yeah, no kidding, David. And Jonathan says, no way, I can't believe it. I'll do some intel for you. He goes up to his dad. He finds out, yeah, he wants you dead. And he sends David off. David runs away at that point. That's when all the caves and all the things start. And Jonathan says this to him as he's leaving. He said, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're gone, I'm still for you. It doesn't matter what my dad's saying, I'm still for you. I'm walking with you. I believe in you. I believe that God has placed something within you. It says, the Lord is witness between you and me, between your descendants and my descendants forever. Then David left, and Jonathan went back to town. The last time they chat, he sends him out, says, go. Walk through that meantime. You're going to be king, David. David went back later and put the only descendant he could find from Jonathan at the king's table for the rest of Mephibosheth's life. How was that? That was the relative. This covenant lasted forever. This covenant was what strengthened David to walk through the meantime. Do you have that kind of friend in your life? I believe God wants to give you that kind of friend. And I believe that there are a lot of people in here who need that kind of friend. Worship team, you can come and join me. We're going to wrap up, and in just a minute we're going to get ready for some communion. So how do you get a Jonathan in your life? How are you going to get a Jonathan? First of all, I think you need to pray for one. That Jonathan doesn't come just out of good character. It's just Jonathan's a nice guy. He's raised well and from a good home, and so he cares for David. That's good. No, something happened spiritually. Something broke in him that bound his spirit to David's spirit. He believed what God had done in David. He recognized it, and he could empower it. And so Jonathan saw something and did something. God did a work in his heart. If you want a Jonathan in your life, you need to pray for a Jonathan in your life. I grew up in a small town, and I had 4 different best friends at different stages of my life, and I kept saying, God, my friends kept doing different things. I had one friend who, they were just getting into different things in their life that I couldn't get into, and I just kept saying, God, would you just give me a new friend? He kept one friend only. Had lots of acquaintances, but I'd have one friend always. He kept putting one friend in my life over and over. One friend, one friend, one friend. Pray for one. Second one I want to tell you is get in a small group. In September, we're going to launch small groups again. If you're not in one, you need to get in one. If you think that you're going to have all the relational needs met that you need met by coming on a Sunday morning, we haven't built it that way. If we were trying to build it that way, I'd never preach. We'd just have you sit in clusters and talk and get to know each other, and that's it. That's not how we built this thing. You come together, and we hope that you're inspired in a Sunday morning, but we don't think that you're going to get deep relationships by sitting in a room with 300 people. So we have worked hard at building small groups. If you say there's no small group that meets at my time, then talk to Pastor George about leading one. We want to see more small groups take place in this church. I'd love for anyone to be able to walk in this church and say, I need friends. And we say, you need a small group. They get in one. All of a sudden, they find a couple Jonathans, cheering them on. Wouldn't that be awesome? Get in a small group. Third one is this. If you want to get a Jonathan, you need to be one. Here's another tweetable. We'll never develop Davids without jump-starting Jonathans. We'll never have Davids in this church until we have Jonathans. We'll never have people who move forward and push along and walk through the meantime until they walk into royalty, until they walk into the kingly places. We'll never have those people until we have others who are saying, take my armor, take my sword, take my jacket, take my everything, take my position, take my potential, take whatever you need. I'm behind you, I'm for you, I'm 100% behind what you're doing and behind what God is doing in your life. So you go and do it now. You go and run. I'll tell you, we could sit here all day and talk about how you can be David, but it wouldn't accomplish nearly as much as if I was to tell you, you need to be Jonathan. If you started working on this, if all of us, look at the room, if all of us just said, I'm going to get behind one person, I'm going to identify what's in their heart, the greatest battles they're facing, I'm going to start tearing off the mask, figure out what's going on in here, what's hard about life for them, what's challenging about life for them. I'm going to figure it out. And then I'm going to ask God to show me what they need to access the great strength that He's given them to walk that through. If we would be that, we would have 300 Davids running around, ready to take on royalty, ready to become all that they're supposed to become. I want to see Davids, but we won't without Jonathans. The last thing I need you to know today is that there's a Savior, and we have a relationship with Him. His name's Jesus Christ, and He knows your greatest struggles. He's experienced them. He's experienced temptation and betrayal and rejection. And He went to the cross. He's experienced death and torture and all of those so that He could identify with you and yours. And so that when He went to the cross and died, He could be raised and remind you that you can have access to His strength, to His life through His Holy Spirit, and walk through whatever you're walking through, whatever meantime you're in, so that you could experience the victory of getting through it. Not to it, but through it. Pastor George is going to come up and talk to us about communion, which leads us into that time as we commune with Jesus.